with everything that's going on in the world, kids of all ages are dealing with anxiety about going back to school.
Yeah, it's a lot to process, and they need your help doing it, beginning now.
Starting the conversation about heading back to school is our featured story at the top of the list.
Our TVs and social media feeds are filled with stories like these: school shootings, bad economic news, rising COVID cases. Kids are saying it, so parents and caregivers have to make time for tough conversations.
Realize that this is hard to do, but the really important things are hard to do.
As the back-to-school clock ticks down, anxieties are sure to ratchet up. So to learn how to have these talks before children return to the classroom, we spoke with David Schoenfeld, director of the National Center for School Crisis and Bereavement at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. He says first, understand why you need to have these talks.
If we don't raise the conversation after it's been talked about so broadly in the media, then children are likely to have heard about it, but also noticed that we are not discussing it.
Your silence will speak volumes.
It says either you're completely uninformed yourself, or you don't have any way you think you can help them, or you really don't even want to take the time. I mean, these are all bad messages.
So the time to talk is right now.
I think these things are going on now, and we should be having conversations about them now, rather than just waiting until they go back to school.
Next up, how to begin the conversation.
You can start by asking them, did you hear about this?
Then ask what their concerns are.
Children often have very different concerns than adults do.
You might be focused on school safety, but your kids may have latched onto inflation headlines and are stressed about having enough lunch money or being able to buy a new backpack. You can't address their worries until you know what they are.
As you start talking with older children, the amount of information that they're going to want to know, the questions that they're going to ask about why it occurred, the explanations that will be satisfactory to them about what impact this has, they're going to be more sophisticated as they get older.
So know it's okay to say you don't know.
So I think we try and explain away everything, but the reality is upsetting and bad things happen. So then what we have to do is help them learn to cope with distressing feelings rather than, pretend that they don't or shouldn't exist.
And while you don't have to overshare, take the opportunity to discuss your fears to model how you deal with anxiety.
What you're doing is you're saying, this is what concerns me, this is how I deal with the concern. Not that I'm not concerned, but rather this is how I cope with the concern.
To help, consider limiting media exposure to interrupt the continuous drumbeat of disturbing events. And David says, while it's normal for kids to be upset, if those feelings continue for several days or they can't manage their fears or anxiety, it's time to seek outside help from a school counselor or mental health professional. Remember, you are not alone. You can go to schoolcrisiscenter.org.
There's a lot of stuff, and we have a lot of additional resources being translated into multiple languages. It's for parents and other caregivers. All of these things are freely downloadable.
And don't think of it as the anxiety talk. Instead, make it an ongoing, ever-changing conversation that can lead to a more open relationship with your kids.
But I made it very clear to my kids, if something's bothering you, I want to hear about it. And that started at a young age, but it's continued into their adulthood.
Talking through your kids' anxiety is at the top of the list.